Hi, Aramis. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to learn more about your background and what brings you to crime mapping and analysis program. This interview is an opportunity for you to get a sense of your interests, skills, and goals and how they align with the program. No pressure, just be yourself. So, shall we begin?
We shall, yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Um, so can you tell me more about yourself and what led you to pursue crime mapping and crime analysis?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm currently an undergraduate criminology student at Kwantlen Polytechnic University in Surrey, BC, and I'll be graduating with distinction this September. Um, my interest in crime mapping dates back to when I took a GIS-based crime mapping course at KPU last spring. And that class really opened my eyes to how spatial analysis can reveal patterns in crime and, importantly, inform prevention strategies. Throughout the class, my interest grew through hands-on research and mapping projects where I started to see how data, place, and policy all intersect and impact real communities. And I particularly enjoy that this profession, crime mapping, will enable me to realize my mission of keeping communities safe through data-driven insight and decision-making.
Okay, thank you. That's a great overview. I appreciate how you connected your academic interests with real-world community safety concerns, and your passion for data-informed policy really comes through. That comes to second question. What specific experiences, either academic or hands-on, have prepared you for the technical components of this program, such as working with ArcGIS or interpreting spatial data?
Right. So academically, I've taken courses touching on environmental criminology, crime prevention through environmental design, as well as crime mapping, as I mentioned previously, where I learned GIS techniques, spatial statistical analysis, and criminological theory, all of which I believe will help me become familiar with the technical components of this program quite quickly. But most importantly, I got hands-on experience with ArcGIS through several mapping projects where I analyzed crime data and created both point distribution and choropleth maps, which I anticipate will be doing readily throughout this program. So that makes me feel prepared for it as well. And on top of that experience, I worked as a research assistant, which really helped me strengthen my investigative, organizational, and communication skills, all of which transfer directly to spatial crime analysis.
That's very relevant. It's great that you've already had exposure to ArcGIS and also working as a um, assistant, and definitely gives you a strong starting point. Now, could you walk me through a crime mapping project you have completed? What tools did you use? What insights did you gain? And how did criminological theory guide your analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so one project that I worked on for my crime mapping course that I took last spring focused on repeat theft from motor vehicle incidents in Surrey, BC. And specifically, I looked at how these incidents related to renter density in different areas. And I chose the variable of renter density because areas with higher renter concentrations often have more turnover, more street parking, and less informal surveillance, all of which can create opportunities for crime. And to get into the specifics of how I conducted this analysis, I used ArcGIS, police reported crime data, and census data to create choropleth maps and did both macro and micro level analyses to investigate this. And the theories that guided this analysis were routine activity and rational choice. And through those theoretical lenses, I did find that renter heavy areas did indeed have more repeat incidents. But interestingly, even some low renter areas had hotspots, which could be explained by environmental factors like poor surveillance and high turnover. And based on these findings, I basically recommended subted strategies like installing cameras and reinforcing territorial boundaries to strengthen guardianship and reduce opportunities for crime.
That's a solid example. I like that you tied your spatial findings back to criminological theories. It shows how you're not just mapping data, but thinking critically about what it means. That's exactly the kind of thinking we value. Since this program emphasizes real-world application, how would you approach using spatial analysis to support a police department dealing with an increase in break-in enters?
Well, I would start by one, gathering recent incident data along with relevant census and environmental variables. Second, I would map the incidents in ArcGIS to identify clusters and look for correlations with factors like household structure, land use, sight lines, etc. Third, I'd interpret the findings through frameworks like SEPTED and social disorganization to understand the social and environmental contributors behind the patterns we're seeing. And finally, I'd present actionable recommendations based off of these observations, like improving surveillance or reinforcing territoriality in specific high-risk areas. So the department could target its resources effectively and hopefully reduce these incidents.
That's a thoughtful and strategic approach. That kind of analysis can really help shape targeted interventions. Okay, Aramis, now how do you make sure your work in crime analysis remains both data-driven and socially responsible, especially when addressing trends that affect vulnerable communities?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think responsible analysis needs both rigor and reflection. I'd make sure to use clear definitions, be transparent with my methods, and validate the data to ensure integrity. At the same time, I'd be very mindful of how findings can affect vulnerable communities. For example, instead of framing renter heavy or low income areas as problematic, I'd focus on opportunity structures and recommend situational improvements rather than punitive measures. It's about supporting safer and more responsive communities and not stigmatizing them.
That's a great point. Now, what do you hope to gain from crime mapping and analysis program? And how do you see those skills contributing to your long-term career goals?
Yeah. Um, What I'm hoping for from this program is to really strengthen my technical skills in GIS and spatial analysis while also becoming more confident working with real law enforcement data sets and presenting insights clearly to different audiences. Additionally, I want to learn how to connect criminological theory to practical evidence-based recommendations that agencies can actually use as a part of my long-term career goal of becoming a seasoned crime analyst. And this program, I believe, is really the right next step for me to achieve this goal, as it bridges the academic foundation I've built with the hands-on expertise that the field demands.
Mhm. That's a clear and well thought out vision. I like that you're looking at both the technical and community level impacts. And it's encouraging to hear how you're planning to use this program as launchpad for meaningful and long-term work. Okay, so do you have any questions for us?
Absolutely, yes, I do. I have a couple of questions. Two specifically come to mind here. So first, um, could you share some examples of how past CMA graduates have applied their skills in careers, particularly comparing public sector and maybe private sector roles? And my second question is that I want to know if there are opportunities during the program to collaborate on real world projects with local agencies. And that's about it.
Well, those are great questions, and I'd be happy to share more about how students interact with law enforcement agencies, as well as their experiences here, and what kind of support is available for career development during and after the program. Thank you, Aramis,
Cool.
for your time today.
Thank you.